Hey, welcome back to Twin Oaks Family Farm. We're going to take a look at the 101 broilers that we're raising. They're 8 days old, and we've made some adjustments in the brooder pen that they're in. So anytime you start baby chicks, they need quite a bit of extra help, quite a bit of support from the flock manager. They definitely need a safe space where they're protected from predators and protected from the elements, and they need good quality feed that is balanced nutrition for them. They need clean, fresh water all the time, and they generally need supplemental heat. Obviously, depending on the weather around us, sometimes of the year are easier to brood chicks in than other times of the year, but regardless of what time of the year it is, if we're able to provide some supplemental heat that gives them an ambient temperature that's around 95 degrees, and we can maintain that consistently, like around the clock, we can generally be successful with brooding chicks. We call the beginning of raising chicks brooding them. And in the case of these broilers, these are specifically meat chickens. These are Cornish rock cross meat chickens. They grow rapidly. They convert feed to meat very quickly, very efficiently. They need a high protein feed to support that rapid growth. We choose to feed a prepared feed made by a commercial feed company that's balanced nutrition, 22% protein value in it, and we make sure that they, especially the first week, that they have that round the clock, and then going into the second week, we just keep the feeders filled up and monitor how quickly they're eating that. Interesting reference point with the flock that we have now. We're going to take a look at them. But interesting reference point with the flock that we have now. So approximately 100 chicks and 8 days old, and we're just now finishing up 50 pounds of feed. So over their whole production, which will be about 6 weeks, I think this flock, I want to say 44 days from hatch to harvest is what we're going to end up with on this flock. They hatched on October 18th, 2023. Our processing date is November 30th, 2023. I think that's 44 days. So our reference point for a flock this size is that we will feed 20 50-pound bags, so 1,000 pounds of feed over 6 weeks. So you can tell from that they're going to ramp up the rate of consumption pretty quickly, because if we're already like at day 8 going on to day 9 and we're just now finishing 50 pounds and we have 19 more bags of feed to feed this flock, then we're going to see an increase in their appetite. So we just generally let them empty the feeder trays and then just go ahead and fill them up. And under most conditions, that works pretty well. Sometimes if we have like extreme temperatures, or if they grow even faster than we expect, we have to kind of regulate the rate that we feed them at as we go out into production, like week 4 and week 5. But at this stage of the game, 8 days old, first 2 and 3 weeks, we want to encourage them to eat, and we want to keep the food available and keep the protein up there around the 22% protein level. And again, that's another thing you can consider a variable as they get toward like 5 weeks old. If you feel the flock needs a reduction in the protein value, you can go down to about 19% protein. So what I want to look at in this video is we changed the heat lamps a little bit in the flock's pen. And so we're talking about brooding and how they need all this support, and one of the things that they need support and help with is supplemental heat. And so this time of year, we're end of October, and we're in southeast Ohio, so we can have some cool temperatures. And in fact, when this flock moved in, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at how they're spaced around the pen and let y'all see that. We have a man door open on the east side of our building. It's late afternoon. It's ambient temperature outside, I believe, is in the high 60s, and we're trying to create an ambient temperature of about 95. So that's what we're working with. There's an overhead light, and there's 4 heat lamps that have red heat lamp bulbs in them, so 250 watt bulbs, and there's 101 chicks. So while we're talking about them here, we'll take a look. But we're trying to keep that ambient temperature for them about 95 degrees. So initially, actually the first day that this flock moved in, we had a really cold night. It was 39 degrees the first night that they were here. So that was quite cold. And we had set up the 4 heat lamps for them initially. And so we have our heat lamps suspended from the ceiling. And so in this building, we just put up a couple rails west to east. I mean, it could be wherever works for your building, but that's what works in here. So we used to like put up rails lower. Oh my goodness. We have learned, sorry, I didn't do a great job with the camera just then, but wanted to tell you, we have learned so much over time with these flocks. Like, we used to put rails up like eye level and then hang these lamps from them because we were thinking, well, that makes it easy to reach, where they're hanging from, like up here. That makes it easy to reach where they're hanging from, and we can easily adjust that. But what would happen is we would have those rails like eye level, and we're trying to fill feeders and fill waters, and we were always trying to like duck underneath everything, and it got to be a total pain in the neck. And so that's when we finally, after a while, got to the point where we said we need to put those rails like way up high so that we can walk around the pen as easily as we possibly can. So we still run into cords, and have to work around that. But we learned to get those rails up there, suspend these lamps from the ceiling by the rails, and by chain that's sturdy enough and strong enough to hold it. And we put S hooks in here. And so we started with these 4 lamps, and we actually had the 4 lamps closer together, and that had been accomplished by like this chain, and of course that one over there that's parallel with it. These both had been back more so that they were closer to these sets of chains. And we call this area that's created by where the warmth and the light falls, we kind of have a phrase for that. We call that a blanket of virtual warmth. So when we moved these 2 lights nearest to the camera here, when we moved them further out from the back ones, we were increasing the size of the blanket of virtual warmth. And we got to the point where we needed to do that when the chicks were about a week old. And we had said, if y'all watched 101 Broilers 7 days old, I had said in that if we're going to start chicks in an area that's really small or really confined, we have to be ready to expand that area for them quickly, because Cornish rock cross meat chickens do grow really rapidly. And if we start them out in a really small space, probably within a week, they're going to be ready for us to get them a little bigger area. And so that's actually what we were running into. The blanket of virtual warmth that we had created for them was naturally where they wanted to stay anytime that temperatures would drop any at all. So it wasn't big enough. And they've been growing, and they're also getting better at regulating their own body temperature. So they actually needed a bigger area to spread out into. So we were able to accomplish that by just moving these front 2 lights further away from the back 2 lights. And so I am imagining that maybe toward day 12 or day 13, we might need to go ahead and add another set of lights. So we've got, the first set right there, and this set. We might need to put like another set here. And then we have to go to a different setup with our plugging them in, because we do only have 4 outlets in here, but we have a multi-outlet. It's not a power strip, but a multi-outlet unit that we can plug multiple lights into. Something I can show you, we do have some birds in this flock, like here, you can see that one laying down, and even here, a few instances of pasty bottom in this flock. That is an indicator, in this case, that is an indicator of chill temperature stress early on. And remember, I said their first night was 39 degrees, and we had the 4 heat lamps, and we had them close, and their own body heat was a factor that could contribute to keeping them warm enough as well. But some of them probably got a little cool, and you sometimes will see pasty bottom if you've had chill temperature stress in the first week with the chicks, especially in the first day or two. So that's what we're attributing that to. At this point, we're leaving alone because it's not critical where it's going to cause a problem for the birds, and that'll dry up and fall off. And as their mature feathers come in, that's all going to be okay. So we're going to let that be like it is. There's still 101 of them. They're doing great. We keep the feed filled up. We keep the water filled up. We have expanded the space that they're using. And of course, they can access the whole building at any time, but they're going to tend to stay where ambient temperature is good for them. And it's going to be warm this week, like 70 daytimes, 55 night times. We would have preferred to have that flipped. It'd been great to have those temperatures their first week, and then they'd have been a little better equipped to handle the cooler temperatures this second week. But it works out the way it works out. And as flock managers, we observe the birds, observe their behavior, and try to make them as comfortable as possible, try to eliminate as much stress as possible. And that's what contributes to the success of meat birds, to minimize the stress, keep them comfortable, keep them well fed, keep them watered, keep the temperature in a comfort zone for them. So we hope that y'all join us again. And when I finish recording here, we're going to move these birds around a little bit, have them not crowding here. They're kind of crowding here because this is where some sunlight is coming in, and we want to see them get up and move away. We haven't had to add too much bedding yet because they're still really young. They're not creating an overabundance of manure yet. So they're still on the first bedding that we started the flock with. We haven't had to add any new, but as they start to saturate this and compress it, we'll just add new bedding on top of it. So God bless y'all. Please join us again back in the barn. We sure appreciate you.